Hello, everyone. Let's wait for more people to join. Let's wait for a couple of minutes before we um, start the chat. For those who are here, welcome, everyone. We'll just start in about a couple of minutes. Okay, let us start.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Jinendra Khobri. I am Head of Product Engineering at Sensfrx, and I will be moderating the Fireside chat today. Our topic is Holiday Season 2025, Protect Your Business from Fraud. Holiday season is when businesses see peak revenue and they see peak fraud as well. So this panel will help us understand how fraud dismantles business operations, how businesses can safeguard customer trust, how fast is the threat landscape growing, and what businesses must do in this AI era. So we have two exceptional experts with us who are from fraud and risk domain. First, we have Tawfiq Wahidi. He is founder of Endurisk Advisory. He specializes in risk governance, compliance, and strategic fraud mitigation for high growth businesses. We also have Tarun Singh, who is principal member at the House of Fraud. He is product lead and strategy lead at Disputed.ai. He works deeply in fraud investigation, attack patterns, and modern defenses used by fraud teams across industries. This is brief introduction about them, but I would prefer if each one of you can give a brief introduction in your own words. Let's start with you, Tawfiq. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hi everyone. I am Tawfiq. Thank you, first of all, Jitendra, to have for having me on the panel here. I am a forensic accountant. I've been working in risk advisory for almost 15 years. I am the founder of India Risk Advisory, where we work with businesses to help them de-risk their operations, and we define risk rather broadly. So we cover your internal controls, internal risk, as well as provide anti-fraud advisory and sustainability related advisory. So that's my background.
Thank you, Tawfiq. And Varun, please introduce yourself too.
Hey, Jinendra, thanks
Yeah.
firstly for the kind words. And I'm Tarun Singh. I lead product and strategy at Disputed. It's the first AI native chargeback decisioning platform. I started my career with Amazon almost a decade back, where I joined as an intern. My mission or the overarching mission was to keep the platform safe. But my personal goal was anything that hits my queue, that transaction needs to be legitimate. it's it's one thing to have know about fraud. Okay, this is what's going to happen, but it's another thing to be held responsible to it. So there's a lot at stake. And then when you look at orders getting passed on for like probably like $5,000, $10,000, oh my god, that's a different moment that you are in. So fast forward, I caught my first modus operandi or a fraud vector. That's when the gray matter hit in the head, and I was like, wow, that's like factor I got, like that thing that came up. And I was like, this is what I'm built for. I mean, it pulled me towards it. I was like, I need to understand what's happening here. So over the time, I grew up the ladder. Though the mission remained to be the same, that to keep the platform safe, but the responsibilities changed. Like there were market launches that we were doing, and so aggressively, like Amazon being a small pop-in stop store, but we were aggressively opening up, and yeah, that was a different ball game altogether. Um, One thing on that is it's definitely the best minds I have worked at Amazon. Just want to put that quote unquote, the best data science, machine learning guys, and of course those frontline agents, the unsung heroes, which were the analysts. So that's where you get all the gold from, right? Like Jinendra, Tawfiq, like those guys are the ones who actually tell you what's happening on the ground. So uh, fast forward, set up my own startup, which got acquired, then got into consulting, and then joined hands with Disputed to build out the first chargeback platform, which is actually intelligent. Yeah, that's about me. Sorry for boring you guys there.
No, it's not boring. Yeah. Okay. Tarun, thanks for the introduction. Let's dive right in with our first theme. Our first theme is basically the real impact holiday season fraud has on operations and revenue. So my first question is directed towards Tarun. During the holiday season rush, what patterns or behaviors make businesses more vulnerable? And which fraud types spike the most based on your data?
If you're specifically talking about e-commerce, then there
Mhm.
is uh, within the fraud classification or typology, there are different vectors, right? So one becomes the payment risk, which is the highest. That's how a fraudster is going to gain something out of hitting your business, because they are investing something to purchase a credit card, getting an emulator, spoofing stuff, using AI. There is a cost of their doing business. So how will they able to monetize? That's going to be payment risk. Now, within payment risk, there's going to be different vectors. That's going to be, you know, they're going to hit transactions, which later are going to turn into chargebacks. Okay. So primarily it's going to be the payment risk, which is hit, followed by the policy risk, which is return fraud, refund fraud, which spiked up. I mean, I think since 2023, we've seen that going up. And the payment, I think the payment, the true fraud or the true transactional fraud, that has been slightly declining or flat. But the actual social engineering efforts towards fraud, which is refund and return, we can delve a lot more deeper into those subjects as we go forward. But that's where I see a lot of spike happening. If it's marketplace, then it's a different ball game. You need to also look at your merchants, you need to look at your buyers, and then because they can collude together, right? I mean, there's a lot of different vectors of fraud patterns that you see on the merchant side, on the buyer side. Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
primarily I would say for the businesses, it's going to be the payment risk, which is has to do with fraud transactions, chargebacks, and the policy part.
Okay, thank you, Tarun. That's good insights. My next question is directed towards Tawfiq. From a risk advisory perspective, what do businesses underestimate in terms of the cost of fraud, other than chargebacks?
Uh, Uh, okay, that's a very interesting question. I like to put a number to it. Actually, there was, I think, by LexisNexis or some agency who came up with this number that for every, and they were referring specifically to chargebacks, but you can extrapolate it to other schemes as well. That for every dollar which is lost on fraud, the actual cost is four times that actually based on the actual loss and the administrative loss and the other costs involved. So businesses do underestimate a lot of a lot of risk which they sort of just take a little casually about. So to answer specifically your question, like what is it that businesses usually don't look at is probably the frauds which come from from the vendor side, or that is onboarding fake vendors or onboarding vendors they're not very diligent about. So when customers are transacting, they don't know who they are transacting with, and this is also from the customer side. If you look at look at a seller probably like Amazon now, it has got millions of sellers on boarded, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
when you're buying from a platform like Amazon, you oftentimes you do not actually go and do any sort of due diligence on the vendor. So it's mostly the listed price, right? If the one is selling at the same thing at 10 rupees, the other one is selling at 8 rupees, you'd probably be like, oh, it's a 2 rupee difference, so let me go with the 8 rupee one, which may or may not be a genuine vendor, which may or may not be a verified vendor for that product. So you often so you end up with cases like somebody getting a bar of soap for an iPhone. So that's something where where companies need to really look into their operations.
Yes, I definitely agree. And if someone buys from a vendor and it turns out to be a fraudulent transaction, say, then it affects the reputation of the marketplace as well, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Absolutely, just to add on to that one point, in when you're talking about e-commerce or a lot of transactions which are which happen with an online interface, reputation and trust factor is probably the most important thing which customers look at. You would find customers willing to spend more if they are assured of not just the vendor or the seller, but of your platform. So people pay a premium for that, and that premium could be in terms of coming back and repeated orders, spending more time on your platform, buying more products, more volumes. So that's the trust factor is really key when it comes to online shopping.
Yes, yes, I definitely agree. And we'll come to that. My next question is directed towards Tarun. By the way, but Tarun, do you have something to add to this?
No, I agree. Like it's a responsibility of a marketplace to ensure that the trust is intact. It's your responsibility. If you're going to onboard a customer or a buyer, you need to know if they are legitimate. You need to deeply look at who your true customers are. You always see a pattern, right? And you need to keep guardrails to that. So yeah, I think Taufik covered it very well, that it's important that trust drives revenue as well. You can still let fraudsters get through, but you do not want to have your genuine customers a bad taste in the mouth, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
As
Yeah,
far
then
as
Tarun,
fraud is,
yeah,
I'm
please
so
go ahead.
sorry. Just something Tarun said, just take me off, is something that fraud is something you cannot actually stop, right? So you always have this some percentage of acceptance to it. Oh, this might just happen. So even if you have like a very strong vendor due diligence done, and you only let the most genuine of all vendors on your platform, what are you going to do about the customers, right? You still end up in a situation where customers order high price items and then return them after a few days, low
Yes,
price
yes,
items. So what are you going to do about all that, right? You can build up a lot of structures, but you cannot, as a policy and as a business, just keep some customers out, or these people will never be allowed to work on my platform. That
yes,
doesn't
yes.
really
We
happen,
cannot
right?
do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You would also end up the customer adding bad reviews and like affecting the trust on a very big scale.
Exactly, and then again, the same point. It will impact the trust of your marketplace, and you'll eventually start be on the losing end.
Very,
Yes,
very
yes,
true.
I
Yeah.
definitely agree.
It's
Yeah,
more of a,
agree.
chase game that you have. Sometimes you get intelligence of what the perpetrators are trying to do if you're smart about it. If you're listening in their platforms, you know what they're gonna do. So that would be a wise thing to do. Number one, just putting out there. But yes, for me, from a personal standpoint, Tawfiq, I would say that it's more like, I'm going to break into your house, and what are you going to do about it? So I have that kind of a question when I'm working on the setup. Like, so when you set up a fraud team 0 to 1, because it's usually a bunch of a cohort of fraudsters, right? It's not like there are a lot of people doing it,
Yeah.
orchestrating it. It's just
Yes.
that bunch of those few people who are like, oh, okay, you got smart about it. I have another way to get through it. And it's a chase game. So
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? Right. It's always chasing the fraudsters, because they have to be one step ahead. Otherwise, you otherwise, if they're not, you can just say, "Oh, we solved all the fraud in the world." You and that's a very nice statement to make, but
Okay, Tarun, I have a question for you. Like, can you share any recent fraud incident that has happened maybe this year or last year that caused real operational disruption? Anything that's interesting?
while there are a lot of stories that I have, but one which came up very recent has to do with AI, and there is this a, an acquiring bank which was onboarding merchants, and it has to do more with the screening, the merchant screening. So when you do a KYB, they first look at your website, right? And they're like, oh, okay, you deal in groceries. Okay, you're a good vendor. Let's go ahead. Immediately, using the AI, they spin up a different CBD, and they were doing the products which the acquiring bank would not allow them to. So this is how, like, they're using dynamic websites and landing pages to do the transactions. That's one part on the merchant side that I've seen. The second I've seen is, there's this company called Headshot Pro, which enhances your photos for for a corporate look or whatever. And they opened up they were hit by promo abuse. So, which was basically that they were giving their affiliate network a charge for every transaction that happened. And that affiliate network used credit cards to do transactions, fake transactions, which got them a remuneration. And a month later, Headshot Pro got almost over 12,000 chargebacks. And they were like, oh
Oh,
shit, that means these were all fraudulent transactions, these affiliate guys. And they also gave the money out to them. So they didn't park the money. They were not like, probably like, they should have kept it for a time frame for to release those funds, which is the actual way to do it. But yeah, that's one. We want to
Very
specifically delve
interesting.
into a credit card fraud kind of a scheme, but that's those are the two stories that I have.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. So then, what did the business do to handle it?
Chirindra, we your voice is phasing in and out, so we couldn't catch that. So
Okay. Okay. So I just asked then, how did you tackle it? Like, how did you tackle the chargeback? Did the business end up paying everything?
so the Headshot Pro we set up basically the chargebacks are hit. You can't do anything about it because these are the affiliate guys or they used the illegitimate cards. They do not belong to them. So chargebacks got in. There is no point you're gonna fight them, right? The one thing that you could do is obviously have like they installed a fraud platform which gave them more connected joint nodes. Okay, so this affiliate guy is connected with these transactions and they were able to make a cohort out of it. And then the next thing is you do not pay them immediately. You park it until the risk period, which is going to be probably the chargebacks, right? And then pay it out. You cannot be like, hey, you did a transaction for me, take a 10% of it. Not gonna work. That's for that. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Tarun, for sharing that. Now, I have a question for both of you. In your experience, do businesses lose more money from actual fraud, or do they lose more from false positives during peak holiday seasons?
Statistically, 85% of the chargebacks, if you take a look at it, that is friendly fraud. Yeah, it's more like the good customers going bad, a buyer's remorse that hey, probably I overindulged in my spending. Let me get my money back. Let me claim my money back. So that's one. Um, yeah, it would be friendly fraud to be honest. That's where the segment is. Taufik, like,
Okay.
your
Yeah.
perception, your view on that.
I do think businesses do lose more money from actual fraud because that's where that's where the where the real hit is. In terms of false positives, I mean, how do you define a false positive? So you thought something is a fraud, but it actually is not, or
Not
the other way
fraud.
around.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, false positive is something like you thought as a fraud, it is not a fraud. So
Yeah.
that is what I got
Exactly.
as false positive.
Exactly. You thought something is a fraud. So basically that gets covered in what I would call is the cost associated with your controls. That you put something to catch those false positives. It's actually a good sign that you investigated something at least to some level, because I don't think any business would really go on for a full-fledged investigation for something which they have strata. So first level investigation, a second level investigation, if the first level shows some further red flags and things like that. So the actual cost of the actual hit lies in actually being subjected to fraud. And as I previously said, that it's $1 lost to fraud is actually a cost of $4. That's
Yes.
where it's 400% that you are actually losing with each dollar you lose due to frauds.
I agree. I've read the same report. Yes. Okay. So based on your opinion, actual fraud is what costs more compared to false positives.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I think. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Thank you, Taufik. Let's move to our next section, that is protecting customer trust, which I
Ah,
think one of the most important factors for any businesses out there. So my first question is for Taufik. How should businesses communicate with customers when a fraud attempt is detected without causing fear or distrust?
oh, that's extremely difficult. So,
Yes.
okay. I'll tell you something from my own experience. As a fraud investigator or forensic accountant, whenever I talk to people, And these are not customers, by the way. These are internal people. So if a manager, say for example, an HR manager in a company or any sort of person comes to know that, oh, this guy is a fraud investigator, they refuse to talk to me. So they're like, oh, why are you asking these questions? Did I do any fraud? So, the perception is immediately built that, oh, if the management or the company has called somebody to somebody with a forensic background or a forensic auditor, there must have been something. And then if he's talking to me, that means I'm being investigated. That's what the perception is. So it immensely and immediately carries a very negative connotation. So when you have to, so if you have been subjected to a fraud, or if you're just investigating a fraud, it's very important to be very tactful about it, about how you communicate this to your customers, because you do want to protect the customer trust. At one point, I would definitely say one needs to be transparent about it. So if you have data which has been compromised, it's extremely important that you let the customers know that your data has been compromised in such and such way. These are the risks which you now face. Again, obviously ending it with a positive statement that this is what we are trying to do to protect further damage, or these are the new steps that we have taken up, and going forward we'll be doing such and such thing. But for customers, if I'm a customer, I would definitely want to know whether my email is out there in the dark web, or should I be immediately changing passwords? Should I be doing some proactive steps? That's one part. So if there has been no data, no data breach, or there has been data is safe, and you're just investigating as a proactive measure, it is again very important and a very good practice to let your customers know that there is no data breach. We have checked, but we are taking proactive measures so that these incidents don't repeat. So being transparent and truthful about this is extremely important, because because nothing erodes customer trust on a brand more than if they are caught lying about it, that,
Yes.
oh, they never did something and they're saying that they have done something. That's the worst part of it. You don't want to deal with people. Do business with people. So if you have if you have a brand which is caught lying, no, that's it. As they say in
A big red flag.
yeah, as they say in Middle East, khalas, nothing. They're not gonna do anything about it.
Yes,
So
yes, I
it's very
definitely
important
agree.
to be truthful and being transparent about it.
Yeah, nothing
And
builds
just
trust than transparency.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and just to add one more thing, it's very important in such a situation to think from a customer's perspective, not from a brand perspective, that, oh, my brand might be compromised. For me to maintain your trust, I need to put myself in your shoes and say, oh, if I had you as a customer and your data is now, at risk, I need to tell you so that you can do a few things about it if I am not able to do those things for you already. So it's important for brands, for companies to think from the perspective of the customer, and then try to come up with protective measures and a communication strategy.
Yes, Taufik. Thank you for your insights. I definitely agree. Transparency builds trust over everything. Uh, okay, Tarun, I have a question for you as well. If you had to pick only three data signals that
Jinendra,
make
we lost you,
the
like your voice is
biggest
phasing in and
difference.
out. So we're
Okay,
not able
just
to hear you. But a closing comment on what Taufik mentioned, like he very
okay.
well said, Taufik, that was very, very right.
Thank
One
you.
thing on that part, just trying to add on to that, whenever there is a suspicious attempt or an account takeover of the account, that emails that you get, right? Which is very smart, like letting the user know that, hey, is this you? If it's not, then log your account off or like change your credentials. That's one thing which the businesses should get into. That's another thing that you had a breach. there's nothing you can do about it. But having proactive monitoring system wherein you know that if it's a customer who's been in your platform, there is a different signal getting in, you should send out and trigger an email to their account. That is one. And just in case the viewers I'm not sponsored, but have I been pawned? If you can just get onto the website, you'll get to see, put on your email, you'll get to see all the places that you have transacted with if you've ever been breached. It can be Amazon, it can be Google, it can be Flipkart, Myntra, whatever. So yeah. All right,
Yeah,
Jinendra,
thank you.
please.
Yeah,
You
am I audible now? Is it clear
you
now?
are. Yes.
Okay, fine. Guys, we have put up a poll. If possible, please participate in it. So my next question is for Tarun. If you had to pick only three data signals that makes the biggest difference in preventing fraud, what would they be?
Before the AI era, probably like last year, if you had to ask me, I would be looking at the entry points of a user, probably like the email, the address, the IP, the device, the standard ways you would look at information, right? Those were the signals. Those still work. I'm not saying that those don't work, but with AI, a lot of things like you're able to mask everything. You're able to mask, like if I am able to get Tawfiq's data online, his card, his fingerprints, his cookies, I'll be able to get exactly replicate that, get into your platform. How are you going to figure that out? So, anyways, so yeah, it's the signals. The three or four would be all the user entries which you take from the user, the metadata that's going to be involved. But I would also want to advise like a solution while that's the question. It's like the user intent, the behavior of how they interact with the platform needs to be involved as well. Now that's the point. Like before, you could just go with single vectors, map it, make a rule set, but now it's more about, do you know the user, how the user is interacting with your platform?
I agree. Now I have one more question for you, Tarun. When do we say, means who is liable for a chargeback in any case? When does a merchant when does a merchant be liable? When does the PSP liable? In what scenarios is a bank liable? Who would you consider would be liable for a chargeback?
The liabilities shift. Okay, if we zoom out, it's a very broad question. So the chargeback liability always lies with the merchant because you led the transaction to happen. So it's your responsibility that you ensure that the transaction is safeguarded. So by the regulations, that's merchant's responsibility. But if 3D Secure is switched on, then for the fraud chargebacks, the liability shifts towards the issuers. Um, but yeah, just the bottom line over there, not dragging that forward, it's always the merchant's liability. But
Okay.
given VAMP, that Visa's new regulation metric, it's holding acquirers accountable for their portfolios. It's also holding merchants accountable now. So I would say the direct monetary loss happens to the merchants, but the regulations or the fees or banning the bins happens to the acquirers. So both are being held accountable at different levels. If it's a chargeback transaction, it's the merchant. But if it's from a portfolio standpoint, it's the acquirers.
I've asked because recently many PSPs have also approached us due to huge fraud problems that they're facing. So, if you are a PSP, then what kind of things that they can take care of to prevent chargebacks or prevent frauds from happening?
The best way is to look at how Stripe has worked. Stripe built their own platform called Radar, which does fraud monitoring and transaction screening. So though the acquirers cannot build that in-house. Like that's a build versus buy question. So they should integrate with a fraud vendor who's able to screen their transactions. So that's why they're reaching out to you, right? They don't want to build that in-house. That's a different segment altogether. You don't want to get there. They want someone who they can associate, trust, to do that part. So they need to get involved with transaction vendors. And the reason you see a influx of customers or acquirers getting to you and be like, Jinendra, can you help us out? It's because Visa drilled down their fees now because of VAMP. It's been live since October. And since November, Monday, the fees have been kicked out. A lot of high risk merchants are being kicked off the platform because they cannot transact anymore. So they are scared. Acquirers are scared because their revenue is being hit. So they want you to help them reduce the fraud in different segments there, breaking it on into which is enumeration, the card testing. They want that to be within the limits. Obviously, the fraud and service chargebacks needs to be within the limit, and yeah, the fraud platform is the first vector which needs to evaluate that.
I have a question for Tawfiq as well. Where do PSPs and marketplaces help or hinder dispute resolution during high volume seasons?
Okay, I frankly don't have a very direct answer to this question because I have limited experience in that field. So
Okay.
uh,
Can
that
I
I would probably give a very generic answer to that, which wouldn't really
Okay,
help the
okay.
argument for that. But yeah,
can I interrupt there once, Taufik? Please allow me to.
Okay, fine.
Jinendra,
go ahead.
yeah. So, Jinendra, can you probably rephrase that question a bit? Because hinder, what do you mean by hinder on the marketplace? So because marketplace is just a platform which allows the vendors to do the transactions, they give that infrastructure to do that. What do you mean by they hinder the dispute resolution process?
By hinder, basically, I meant what I said. Like, if in the dispute resolution process,
Hmm.
um, whenever there are high volume transactions,
Right.
where do PSPs or marketplaces help or hinder dispute resolution? Or they basically act as a blocker for handling disputes?
The- on that point, there's a pretty standard process, Jinendra, in terms of an acquirer. Their job is to, communicate that there is a claim or a chargeback raised against that merchant of record. If you are a business working with a PSP, they're going to be like, Jinendra, there's a chargeback to your transaction XYZ. And you need to collate all the evidence based on the different reason codes what have hit you, and you need to pass that information to them, and they would forward it back to the networks, goes via all the channels back to the issuers. So ideally, if it was hindered, any process of notification and the evidence submission is being blocked, is disrupted, that's hindrance. So, but ideally, there is a standard process where it
Mm.
works smooth, this entire channel. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think it helps as well sometimes. So there are some of the tools available which help you in evidence collection and submission.
Disputed
Often
does that
PSP
very
also. Yeah,
intelligently, just plugging us in
yeah.
there.
Okay. Let's move to the next section. That is, let's discuss about fraud landscape and how is it evolving and how is AI weighing in. So
Jitendra,
fraud is
we lost you.
evolving.
Sorry to interrupt. Okay, can you
Okay.
repeat that?
For
We lost you.
some reason, I'm facing an issue. Yeah, just do something.
Jinendra will be joining back, so we are sorry for the lag.
Yeah.
That's fine,
Yeah.
Janine.
Am I audible now? Is
Yes,
it
you are.
better now?
This
Yes,
is better.
Okay,
yes,
great,
you are.
great. Okay, that is good. So let's move to the next section. That is, let's talk about how threat landscape is evolving and how is AI weighing in. So my next question is for both of you. Anyone can weigh in. What's one emerging fraud tactic in 2025 that most businesses aren't prepared for yet?
AI voice cloning, AI generated identities, that's been a surge that has come up like since the Q1. I personally have seen, and then statistically the numbers are out there that there has been a huge surge in AI generated identities, synthetic identities being generated at a large scale, thanks to the large language models
AI.
we have on open source systems now. Yeah, those are the two that I see had a huge spike.
Okay. Tawfiq, do you have
I
anything to add to this?
yeah, I
Yeah.
would actually say one thing and refer back to our previous discussion on this. AI generated imagery for fake products, which uh, are available on various platforms. So. It's pretty easy now to create images of pictures, and you'd see this on various these mass product sites like Sheen and Temu, which mostly are like low quality, lower price products, which are AI generated, and they look entirely different. Now, why am I saying this is from business perspective is because it goes again to what we were discussing previously. It erodes the trust of consumers on your platform, that you have, you're victim to such a lot of vendors who would use AI to create very realistic products, and then the products don't match to the quality or don't match to anything that they look, you order a dining table and you get a doll's dining table. That's what.
Okay.
And they have various use
Interesting.
cases there, like for return or refund fraud, and they're gonna exactly change the porch, your doorstep, and they're gonna make that box like probably broken,
Oh yeah.
or the
Yes.
items broken, and then your customer service is gonna be like, hey, I'm really sorry you got this, and probably it's the carrier guys.
Uh,
Let me give you a refund off. So
uh, Yeah, it opens a whole new Pandora's box of things which you can do with creating fake images from using AI.
agree. And the
Yeah.
fraudsters, right?
And
Topic like they. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, pardon. You were saying something? Can you
Right.
continue?
So the fraudsters, like when they run a scheme, right? So they start with probably let me tamper, the let me claim to the customer service I didn't get it, for an example. And the
Yes.
customer service is going to be like, no, 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 we see it's delivered to you. Oh, yeah, my neighbor took that. Oh, I got it. And now they're going to try, huh, they're going to send an AI image, which is going to be like, this is not something that I ordered, or this is damaged. Then the customer service is going to be like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. Let me give you a refund. But if they're smart, like if they use fraud vendors who are able to call the BS, they're going to be like, no, this doesn't work. And then the last resolution is going to be chargeback because they want their funds back, right? They're going to be like,
Yeah.
okay, let me place a chargeback. But yeah, there's an entire symphony that they have, different ways to,
Correct.
ways to hit you. So yeah, with AI, the possibility is so high, right? Jinendra, you are on mute. Sorry.
Jitendra, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, recently we also did our own research where we were finding that synthetic identity frauds are also on the rise, where AI drives complete new synthetic identities, and like they'll pick up your like say DLs or whatever is available. They'll create clean profiles, and using that maybe they'll apply for loans or purchase products. Like it's humongous.
Right. And think of it, Jinendra Taufik, like you are able to cultivate dormant sleeper accounts on a large scale. Now you are able to have, those sticky IP device, everything which looks at in one browser. For an example, if you use any emulator, right? Like there is Puppeteer, there is Puppeteer Stealth, which lets you have your own one profile has its own distinct device ID, IP, whatever stays there. And AI is able to orchestrate that on a very large scale. So yeah,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
that's huge.
The speed with which these things can be done, and the sheer volume of it can be is just something which is uh, and definitely the ease. I mean, not from a business perspective, but from a customer's perspective. There was a statistic that there are some 75,000 fake websites which are being created by just one criminal gang to and they're just floating out there. And I actually had one person who bought something from a website because again the image looked nice, it was on heavy discount, and then it turned out it was just one of those network websites probably made using Shopify or something, and it was all fake.
Yeah.
Tarun and Tawfiq, I think we'll need to move to our last section now before we open for Q&A. So what are the major do's and don'ts in this AI era? Tawfiq, can you take it up? Like, what are the
Yeah.
biggest mistakes companies make when integrating AI into their fraud stack?
When companies integrate AI into their fraud, I think one of the things which companies do is not to have a proper sort of an AI policy. See, AI with companies is pretty nascent, right? It's something which they themselves are learning on how to do and what to do with this. And you see this in multiple departments, whether it's the risk team or it's some other team which is now starting to use AI. It's not well integrated into their system. So that is one thing which needs to be sort of improved on, or something which needs to be, I wouldn't say improved on, it needs to be reiterated again and again, that it takes a bit of iterations on how their AI model is learning from their activities, and what are the scenarios that the AI can predict and the AI can do on.
Okay. Tarun, can you add up like one do and one don't that you strongly recommend for fraud teams?
Um, I would say treat the fraud team or like the vendors as like a revenue protection channel, but not a cost or a cost center, or like it's an added cost for doing business. That needs to be paramount. That is highlighted. Um, and then don't look at your those traditional signals, and which would be just have those static rule sets that won't work anymore. So those would be the 2 points if I were to add.
I would just add one more thing to that. Just not to turn the answer, but just to answer to your question. The in especially in terms of the theme of the discussion, the holiday fraud season. Don't start with the planning of the Black Friday sale, because that's the last point, and your fraudsters are probably ready by then with their schemes. Start much earlier. If you're thinking of fraud protection, start much earlier, at least 2 to 3 months in advance, so that your fraud teams, your analysts, your risk teams are prepared for this massive turn of transactions which is going to come. So starting at the last moment, or like it's not generally a good idea. And also your fraudsters, the people who are sitting there to scam, they are ready and they have this in mind that the company at the time of Black Friday sale, they would have done something about the protection, so they would be on guard as well. So they would also start a little earlier. They would also start collecting your data, you're collecting, the schemes much in advance. And that is when the companies need to beat them. That's when the businesses should try to get ahead of them.
Agreed. 100%.
Thank you. Agreed as well. Thank you, Tawfiq. Guys, let's open this up for Q&A. So the first question is, I run a small business. We frequently face fraud with payments. I did some research and saw it's called card not present fraud. How can we protect ourselves without creating too much friction for genuine customers? Who can take this up?
So
Tarun?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. One is I would advise that you focus on your business. Let companies like Sensfrx take care of your transaction monitoring. Number one, you do not have to go into the weeds and trenches of understanding the fraud. How do I do it? Yes, you need to know what they're doing, but in this era, you won't be able to do it by looking at the email and the IP, making those combinations. Don't get there. That's a different ball game. So I would suggest the number one thing is that you get a fraud vendor who's able to look at all the threat landscape. They're able to tell you which transactions to approve and which not to approve, but also tell you, not like a black box, why you shouldn't be accepting that transaction. Why are you risking it? And customer friction, that's a different thing. Like, so it depends on your appetite, the risk appetite, how much you like. If you want to have higher revenue, then you drop down your guardrails a bit. But if you want to be a little stricter, that's other thing. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Uh, Okay, so the next question is, I manage customer experience for a large e-commerce brand here in Dubai, and we often face issues with delays and bad user experience when we try too many measures to block fraud. How do we strike the right balance between fraud prevention and a smooth, frictionless customer experience? And if so, how to get it going?
Okay, if I can just add two cents to that to that answer is, I think the question doesn't give any details of what sort of frauds that they are dealing with, or like what are the situations that they are trying to beat. But since it's more about customer communication, it has to do with how they're communicating this to the people, how customer centric they are building their business model to be. If it's very customer centric, they are loving more concessions to customers. They need to again have a very strong look at what are the types of frauds specifically that they are facing in that geography, and build controls around that. The controls can be tech controls, again hiring a vendor like um, Sensfrx uh, to monitor these transactions for them, or maybe just have better communication strategies for consumers so that the complaints are reduced.
Okay, well said, Tawfiq. I have one more question. Hi from Netherlands. My question is, how can AI systems help PSPs differentiate between fraud and genuine customer disputes?
I can take that question partly.
Mm.
PSPs can, to an extent, be able to give you an entire picture of a transaction fraud. Again, the PSPs need to be work in collaboration with the fraud vendor or have their own platform. That's given. Okay. But one part where I see that they would not be able to effectively give you the entire threat landscape is because they're not listening to everything. They're not listening to what's happening post transaction. What's the engagement of the user? What's happening over there? So they won't be able to give you the full picture which a fraud transaction platform can give you. An example is the fraudster has done everything right to place the transaction, and then you send a notification email, right? And instead of using the same system, they just log in from their phone, which is probably in a different country altogether. Such kind of vectors, the PSP is not able to listen to. That's where, the platforms, which are fraud platforms, will be able to give you a better signal on that.
Yes. As for PSP, the transaction is the only entry and exit point. They don't have the behavioral footprints. They don't have the much information on the behavior or anything. It gets tough.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well said, Tarun. Thank you. I can take last two questions. Which distinct fraud schemes pose the biggest risks to marketplaces, and how can they be identified early?
No,
Basically,
different
what type
geographies
of
have
fraud?
different
Yeah,
fraud. Yeah, different geographies have different
exactly.
fraud. If we're speaking about North America, like I initially mentioned, the payment risk is high. The policy risk has also grown up because if you look at how the fraudsters, I wouldn't like they're not hackers anymore. Those are scammers. They know how to scam you. They know the social engineering stuff. It's pretty easy. So I think the refund return, that is going to be one thing which you need to look at. And again, this is based on the business. What kind of a business are you in? And what kind of fraud has hit your platform? So it's that way. I would say payment and policy risk is going to be the top number ones. Topic. Yep.
Yes, yes, I agree. And
I don't
Taufik,
want to add anything to that answer. It's such a good answer to have for this question because fraud is very personalized, right? So if you have scammers who understand what geography they are operating with, it's more or less like a business for them, right? They have their demography very clear about like we are gonna scam old people or we are gonna work with young people. So and what would trigger them? So if you have something like in India where WhatsApp scams are very common, but
yes,
over to the to US and others, it's more about the gift card scam, right? It kind
yes,
of
yes,
depends on how well the scammers understand their target segment, to use the business language, their target segment.
yes, yes. Can't be explained better. Very well answered, Tarun. Okay, so this is the last question that we'll be taking up. More than monitoring the fraud, I reckon monitoring the genuine users are more easier with white signals. How do you see the white signals can help locate the outliers of fraud users?
Chinendra,
How
we
can
lost you.
white signals be more helpful?
Chinendra, we lost you on that
Okay,
question. Can you repeat that, please?
yeah, let me because okay. Am I better audible now? Okay. So more than monitoring the fraud, yeah, Kanika, if you can step in, it would be helpful. I guess there is some issue from my side. Okay, it's sorted, I think.
Yeah, we can hear you.
More than
Yeah.
monitoring the fraud, I reckon monitoring the genuine users are more easier with white signals. So basically, he is asking that what are the white signals that we can rely on that can help us identify genuine users and locate the outliers of fraud users. So basically, how can white signals be more helpful?
Uh, it's just a few things from my side on this. I won't answer the question from a technical perspective, but from more from a governance and a business perspective. One of the biggest white signals is your account history of what you've been doing with your account. Are you a trusted
Definitely.
account? And that also presents a good chance to point out any anomaly, because anything which is not in line with the customer's repeated history becomes an immediate red flag, and that is probably what your fraud tracking systems would immediately pick, that this customer's, say for example, returns are going up, his cancellation orders are going beyond what normally he or she used to do. So that's one of the white signals that companies should keep a track of. Tarun.
I definitely agree. The
You're right.
older the device, the trusted the device,
Right.
uh, helps a lot.
Right. And
Okay.
then immediately if you see there is a password change with a login involved, then you got to be like, hey, though this is a white signal, I got to be cautious. Like, so that is when an account takeover happens, everything looks
Yeah.
good. So that is one part. But very well said, Tawfiq. That is like the older accounts with a good history and transaction pattern is similar. It's a white signal.
Okay. I think we'll need to wrap this up now. We are up. The time is up now. Thank you, Tarun and Tawfiq, for your insights. It has been really helpful. Uh, if you have any more questions, then please direct them towards us through email, and we'll try our best to answer them. I thank each and every one of you who joined the webinar and helped us make this better. Okay. Thank you, Tarun and Tawfiq, again for joining.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Jinendra
Yeah,
and
thank
Kanika,
you.
for having us. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.